Hey, everybody, welcome back to another awesome episode of the Relentless Goal Achievers podcast. I'm super stoked to get this one underway. If you're not in the Facebook group yet, get your butts over there, Relentless Goal Achievers community, join it, hit subscribe, hit like, share this with your mama, and share it with your fat, lazy friends because this one's going to be super motivating. I got a really good friend of mine, Phil Conway. We call him Pincher, and we're going to figure out why his name is Pincher in a few minutes. But when I think relentless goal achiever, Phil comes to mind. And we're going to dive in very quickly to talk a little bit about his transformation of who he used to be to going to a guy who runs Ironmans to becoming an Ironman. It's pretty incredible journey. So Phil, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey man, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So talk to me about for those of you who don't know, and for some of you who do, I'm a part of this group called F3. If you're a man and you don't know what F3 is, chances are there's a secret workout group that's not so secret. It's free, it's open to all men. We do crazy stuff like get together at 5:15 in the morning in random parking lots, work out to get into better shape. Then we talk about leadership. We support each other in their growth. It's all free. And the whole purpose is to invigorate male community leadership. And so Phil is an OG in F3 down here in Florida. I'm one of the newer guys, been there for about 2 years. Phil, talk to me about who you were before you joined F3.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, we can go all the way back down to way down into the background of growing up. When I first grew up, my dad was in the military, moved around a lot for military. Parents kind of split when I was young as well. So that turned into moving in between them a little bit, and then I kind of settled into being down here in Southwest Florida several years ago. Actually moved to the Cape Coral area about freshman year of high school and kind of found home like Southwest Florida, so stayed there for quite a while. Work opportunity presented itself to move me up here to Lakewood Ranch area about 11 years ago now. So I took that opportunity, moved up here, actually opened one of the restaurants that is the group that I work for. Kind of why I got that name Pincher. Pincher's is the restaurant I opened up here in Lakewood Ranch. And basically what happened there is in the restaurant business, there's a lot of food to be eaten all the time. Not a whole lot of good cooking at home as far as being healthy goes. Lots of hours to put in. And so there's a lot of French fry eating, a lot of soda drinking, and that leads to a lot of extra pounds. So at one point I was in the process of watching my son play soccer, and it became a parents first kids game. I went out and tried to play parents first kids, and running down the soccer field, pulled my calf muscle, couldn't walk for like 3 weeks. And I said, Phil, what is wrong? What is up? You can't even play soccer with your son, who's like, I think he was probably 6 or 7 years old at that point in time, and said, there needs to be a change, and that change needs to happen now. So ironically, I just decided I'd try biking and went into the bicycle shop, bought a bike, and figured that I would try biking and see how that went. Needless to say, I kind of liked the biking, but it was kind of a solo thing. It wasn't that much fun, just going out and doing it by yourself. And one of the parents of my son's kid who was on the soccer team said, hey, there's this group of guys that works out down the street from where we live. It's like a boot camp thing. Why don't you come out on a Saturday and try it out? That guy's name was Viking. He no longer lives here. He is actually Swedish and moved back to Sweden several years ago. But anyways, I was like, all right, well, that's great. I'll go check this thing out. And basically went out there. And as you know, we did this little warm-up thing that we're supposed to do in the beginning of the workout to pretty much stretch us out and get us ready for the real workout. And in that 5 minutes, I was like, holy crap, this thing is crazy. I can't hardly keep up. And I thought that was the workout. That's kind of how the venture of the change started for me as far as the physical aspect goes.
Man. All right. So what do you think you were weighing back then? Do you remember?
I probably didn't get on a scale back then, but I would say I was in the upwards of probably 230s, maybe even more than that. Probably the first time I got on a scale to really start paying attention was in that 230 mark. That was probably a few pounds above that.
So if I hear you correctly, you had a pretty strong why, and that why was I can't even keep up with my 6-year-old kid in a soccer game. Something needs to change. Most of the time we
Yep,
set goals. If you have that strong why, there is no stopping you. And then
absolutely.
once you made that decision, boom, now the universe is starting to attract people. Like Viking probably saw you on that field a bunch of times, but it wasn't, did you tell him you were biking or anything? Or like, why did he decide to tell you now about F3?
I think it was because he knew. I just in talks that I said mentioned that I was trying to start doing some stuff. I probably started walking out there at the soccer field, maybe even tried to run, but I literally remember there's a quarter-mile block around my house, and I couldn't run the quarter-mile around my house when I first started the process.
Yeah.
So probably noticeable that I was trying to do something.
That's insane to me, man. Okay, awesome. Let me ask you, what were you doing for the restaurant business?
So back then, I was basically a general manager. I was in operations, running the stores, pretty heavily in the buildings, and then I kind of molded into what they called a divisional manager. So I started managing multiple locations, which was still an operations side of the business, which required me to be in the business inside the buildings, the four walls, for several hours a week, upwards 60, 70 hours some weeks. And if we were opening a store, it was off the chain crazy amount of hours. Um, so so inside those buildings, and then they're late nights. So if we're closing down, we're closing the restaurant at 11 p.m. and didn't really leave much opportunity for getting up early like F3 likes to do. So fortunately, timing all planned out and worked out well that I moved into more of a corporate support kind of role. And then I was able to do a lot more things from outside of the four walls. A lot of things remote, which then also, many vendors aren't working at 11 o'clock at night. So when I'm working with a lot of vendors and doing things like that, they're more of 9 to 5 kind of people. So then that allowed me to get more of a more normal routine, even though I'm available for the stores when they need me remotely. It just allowed more flexibility on my schedule to be able to start getting into more of the F3 world, which was a big support for the why.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you remember when the first goals, like a big goal that you set at that time?
At that time,
Run a
well,
quarter
so
mile.
yeah, no, so at that time, some of the guys got together for a group from the F3 group to go run a thing called Ragnar, which is in the trails right up here, Ragnar Trails. One of the guys was supposed to run it. Actually, a good buddy of mine, still a close friend, still does F3, Drake. He was actually injured, wasn't able to participate. And I think it was like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks before this Ragnar was supposed to start. And they're like, hey, Phil, why don't you come join us and do the Ragnar thing? And so I was like, all right, fine. I guess that sounds like a good challenge and I'll take it. And so then I just started heavily loading down some runs. And at that time, heavily loaded means run 2 or 3 miles at a couple days a week. So
Yeah. All right. So Ragnar was the first goal. Like, talk to me. Like, what was the evolution? So you're still out of shape, 2, 3 miles a week now. I mean, that's pretty. I mean, it's from not being able to run a quarter mile. That's huge. What was the next goal? You get back from Ragnar. I'm sure. Were you feeling a little more confident than before? Or what did that do for you?
So I mean, I've always been a challenge-driven person. I mean, this goes all the way back to my childhood, I remember being really young and a child. My parents weren't super wealthy, and back then, what you wore and how you presented yourself was a big part of what made you popular or not popular. So I remember being young, getting bullied because I was wearing Walmart branded clothes, whatever my parents could put on my back. Not that I starved or not that I didn't have clothes. They provided that part. It just wasn't in the world of the rest of the elementary kids or middle school kids cool enough, right? So uh, at that point, that was probably my first moment of having that drive and desire. I went out and got a job. I think I was like 12 and a half, 13 years old. Started working under the table and said, I'm going to start getting the things that I want. So I remember bought my first Sega Genesis because my parents couldn't afford one, but I wanted one. So I worked my butt off at this place, bagging ice and restocking It's like a convenience store. I'd ride my bike there, I think like 5 miles there and 5 miles back, and got paid like, I don't remember, probably $6 an hour under the table or some stupid stuff, but I saved up and started buying my own stuff. So that was the kind of the first motivation goals. So when it got into the F3, it was kind of along the same thing. I mean, work was obviously motivating as well, same goals, new goals, different things. But as far as a physical aspect thing, F3 was a big portion of that, keep providing the next goal. There was always somebody out there that wanted to push it, that thought they were faster, that pincher couldn't beat them. And those are always, I like to tell somebody that you can't tell me I can't do something. So whenever there's somebody that thinks they're faster or thinks they're going to be quicker or complete the course faster or whatever, then that's just fuel to the fire. And that's when the drive and the desire just keeps on burning. There's always those guys in F3 that just present those opportunities for the next person. And so that kept the fuel fire.
You are that guy, man. Now you're that guy. It's like looking at you.
And now I'm probably more that guy than I was, that's for sure.
Hey, looking at you now, it's like, man, if he could do that, and I follow you on Strava, it's like, oh, just did, a 20-mile run, and it's like 8.5-minute miles or 9-minute miles for 20 miles in a row. I'm like, dude, that's freaking awesome. It's so good to be surrounded by people who are driven and that far ahead of you. So you're in a leadership role, clearly. At work, you're a leader in F3. For folks who, well, let's focus on men or anybody really. For folks who have a goal that they want to hit, and every year they keep saying the same goal and don't take action towards that goal, what would you tell them? Like when you see somebody like that, what advice can you give them?
I mean, there's nobody that really fixed that for you. You got to be the one that makes that desire and that change. And that, I don't want to say it in bad terms or way, but it's almost like an alcoholic. You're not going to make them stop drinking. They have to make those first steps. Now you can help them achieve those steps along the way, but they have to be the ones that trigger that initial, I'm going to do something about this. And you have to take that first step. And a lot of times to me, that's just breaking it down. Okay, so if you say, I want to run an Ironman, well, if you're only running around the block a quarter mile, that's way too big of a goal, right? You need to break that thing down and you need to say, okay, I want to run a mile. And then you achieve that mile. And then you go, okay, now I want to run a 5K. And then you get out there and you start working until you can run that 5K. And then once you run that 5K, it's the next thing, right? Half marathon. Let me go run the half marathon. Okay, well, let me do a full marathon now. Okay, well, let me do a half Ironman. And then boom, now I made it to that long-term goal. So if you just go out there and say, I want to be an Ironman, and you try to go be an Ironman tomorrow, and you're starting from a quarter mile around the block, that's just too big of a piece of pie to try to swallow. And you're going to quickly find out and be deterred that that's too hard, right? But when you start to break it down and you find those little successes, then those little successes keep that fire burning to get you to the next step that you need. And then ultimately you can get to that big goal.
Hey, real quick, I want to thank you so much for listening into this episode, and just bear with me. We got a 1-minute commercial coming your way. Have you ever blocked off time to do some lead gen or cold call or read a book or write a book, whatever that may be for you, and then when that time comes, you just simply don't do it? You find other busy things to do, like maybe check your emails and clean out your inbox, things like that. Well, look, if you find yourself doing that, you're not alone, okay? If you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, or someone in the field of selling, chances are there are areas of your life where you're not performing the way you want to perform. You probably feel alone. You don't know which steps you need to take next. Look, this is exactly why we created Relentless Goal Achievers. We're a group of growth-minded individuals who have an opportunity to meet 3 times weekly, although it's optional, 3 times weekly, to talk about our goals, learn new things, and take our businesses and our life to that next level. Here, click the button below, see if you might be a good fit. I think this is the group you've been searching for. I'll see you in there. So what's keeping your fire burning nowadays?
I don't know. So nowadays, nowadays I just stir the pot with some of the F3 guys and see who wants to play games.
So you just, I mean, literally this weekend, you guys ran a half Ironman. How many guys were there?
So there was a total of 8 of us.
That's so cool.
My latest fire was Kona. Is a young guy that's joined our group who actually qualified as a half Ironman in his past. He's named it Kona because he has ambitions of qualifying for Kona at some point in time.
What is Kona?
Kona is the world championship for Ironman. So you have to basically participate in a regular Ironman, rank high enough in that ranking for that finish to qualify. Like, and normally it's like the top 2 or 3 spots that get qualifying slots.
Wow.
So, yeah.
I didn't know that. I know Kona. I mean, he was my chiropractor for a while. So
Yeah.
he's a runner. I mean, that guy's a stud.
Yeah.
So why, I mean, why was that your, like, what did you say? That was like your project?
That was the goal this year. So, so Kona was a good motivator for me to keep working harder and harder and harder. So,
Got
Kona
it.
put up a time and I put up a time. And well, the time was actually a difference of 3 minutes and 44 seconds.
Who won?
Venture.
Oh, go pitcher, man. Congrats. How did that feel?
It feels great, right? I mean, it's good motivation. It feels awesome. It's not there to beat somebody necessarily. That's not the goal, right? The goal is not to put somebody down or anything like that, but it's just fuel to the fire to keep going, right? So when you're out training and you're running that 8th mile and you're really tired and you're like, I just want to go home. I've had enough. And you think, okay, well, we're going to go home? Probably. So I'm going to run 9.
I love it. I love it. So that's the motivator for you. What has this done with your marriage? Because I got a chance to meet your wife. We actually, where were we? Was that it was like the prom for people with special needs. It was, oh, Night to Shine. It was a night to shine. We were both volunteers. I got to meet your wife. Looks like you guys have an amazing relationship, but what the hell do I know? I met her and you together for like an hour. What was your relationship like before you took on kind of changing yourself and transforming yourself and now?
My wife, I mean, you nailed it on the head. My wife's a great support for me, always has been, always continues to be there. And I definitely wouldn't be where I am without that support and who she is. When we were young and decided to get married and all those good things and have kids, we came up with a game plan. We decided in the beginning, I said, you will stay home, you will take care of the kids, we will always have somebody raising our kids and not having them go to a babysitter. And if I have to work whatever I got to work to make sure that you can provide for the family in that manner and I financially provide for the family, I thought that was a big part of an important role of having a family. And she was definitely on board with that same idea, being somebody that wanted to actually be a teacher and, somebody that loved kids and those kind of things, had no issue with saying, yeah, sure, I'll stay home, you work, no problem. So that's just kind of how it's always worked out for us and continues to work out for us. So she was always very supportive and knowing the fact that for that to happen, it meant whatever the hours were at work or what the hours were at work. And unfortunately, it took a lot away from the whole family dynamics, being, away at work, sometimes even being called into work in the middle of one of the kids' birthdays and then just being like, sorry, I have to leave and go. But being dedicated to that to be able to provide for the family so that she could stay there was what it took. And now that it's morphed into a whole, I don't know if it's morphed, it's God's plans, God's wills, whatever you want to call it. The role has changed, the hours have gotten better, allows more for those opportunities for me to be there for the kids. And see those moments and not necessarily have to worry about being called out away to work. And then it also allows me, like I said before, that availability to get up at 4:15 in the morning and go put in 3 or 4 hours worth of workout, come home, and it's just the time that the wife is getting up. So she does not really missing me for those times, right? Probably the biggest downside for her is when my eyes are rolling in the back of my head at 9 o'clock at night, and she's like, "Okay, I guess we all have to go to bed now."
You mean at 7 o'clock at night? No, I'm kidding.
Sometimes.
Yeah. No, I
Uh,
get it.
but
But
she's great with it. She loves it. Let's see. First half Ironman was 2 years ago. So we went with a couple of the guys, probably about 8 of us again, and it was a great trip. Had a fantastic time. The race itself wasn't that great for me, finished, but it wasn't a great moment. Anyways, besides that point, I came home and I was like, honey, you absolutely have to go with us on the next trip. You will love it. It was so much fun just to go hang out and like racecation, right? Where, we're going out to hang out with some friends. You drive up there, the social aspects of it, sleeping in the same hotels, everything about it is just a blast. And I knew she would love it. And so, she kind of was like, I don't know, that's your thing, not my thing, kind of worried about it. She ended up coming the second half Ironman that I did. And then she absolutely fell in love. So ever since that half Ironman, she is all in now. She's like, when's the next one? What's the next race? We got to go. Let's start scheduling them up. Who's going this time? So she's all on board. So it's been fantastic to see that. She's always, like I said, been that super supportive kind of person, but it's even better when you see that she's actually enjoying it too. So
that's so cool, man. What has that done for your family dynamic? Just your transformation. They say a high tide raises all ships. You being a leader, you being a role model for your kids. By the way, how many kids do you have? And I know you have at least one boy.
I have 2 boys.
You got two boys. So them seeing their father transform into this stud athlete. I mean, an Ironman, like what percentage of men can say that they finished an Ironman, let alone a few of them?
Yeah.
But they see that, you're not talking, you're doing. What change have you seen in your boys?
That's a big part of the drive too, and the goal is to see that I set the example for my children. And doing that would be, work hard. That is all aspects of life. And I think if you do, big pusher of live right? Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, do good by others, proper morals, work hard. The staples of what I believe is things that everybody should be doing, and try to live myself that way and give that example. And I think it's paid dividends to my children. I think it's good for them to see that goal and that aspiration and that drive, and I think it's passed along to them in a way that would have been nice to maybe have some of when I was in that younger age growing up household. I had to find a little bit of my own, which I don't think was a bad thing. I think that was probably the thing that needed to happen for me. But my son literally graduated high school, doesn't want to go to college, and I'm like, that's fine. That college is not for everybody. It just means you're going to have to go out and you're going to have to work. And so that starts now. Like, if you're not on vacation, if you're not going to college, you go to work. And so he's been working now for he actually started before high school, but he graduated high school, now got a full-time job in the same role that he was before, and is already getting promoted. I mean, the guy literally just worked 102 hours last week because he's opening a new location for somebody.
Wow.
So he's
Is
18
he
years.
is he working with Tommy?
Yes.
Oh God, I remember him telling me that. Yeah, that's that is quite a role.
Yeah. So, I mean, how many 18-year-olds know that will work 102 hours in a week for somebody? So I think its torch is getting passed. So
Yeah, congratulations. You got to be so proud of you got to be proud of that. For the folks that are listening that are just not happy with where they are and they don't think they can make a change. What are some ways, like what can they do starting now to ensure that in 12 months their life can be completely different?
What they just got to make that first step. I mean, I don't know. You got, I think, like you were saying, that why, if they can really understand the why, what's the real reason that they're setting those goals, and if they're the why is strong enough, then they just got to start moving the train. Um, uh, and then just stick with it and continue to find those things that motivate you. Everybody gets motivated differently, right? So, what may motivate me may not do anything for somebody else. But you got to find what that fuels your fire to keep you motivated. And that's your real why, right? And I think if you can find those, then you'll find success. But if you're finding that you're not getting the success, then you're probably not having the right why. And you got to look at something different.
Yeah, and also you might not be surrounded in the right atmosphere, right? I mean, you take the seed and you put it on a ground, nothing's going to happen to it. Take that same seed, put it in soil, water it, nurture it, things going to grow to what it's supposed to be. And you said the word motivate. You're like, not everybody's going to get motivated the same way or by the same thing. I agree, not by the same thing, but the term motive, I think where people make a mistake is they look for motivation on the outside, but motivation comes from it. The root word is motive. What is your motive? What's your reason? What's your why for doing that? And you're 100% right on. Like if they know why they're doing it, if there's something pulling them, nothing's going to stop them. I'll share with you, this year is like a crazy year for me. I made two big decisions. One, I didn't know that there was a half marathon. I didn't even think of a 5K. Like I can run a 5K probably, but I just thought like, well, what's the 2.0 version of Eric look like? And I'm like, well, I really suck at running, so I'm just going to sign up for a marathon. My stupid ass signed up for a full marathon. I did not realize half was an option. I'm kind of glad I didn't, but it's
It's
just
not an option now.
it's not an option now. Yeah, I'm like less than 6 weeks away from a full marathon. I'm gonna run it. But you're absolutely right, man. And then the second thing I did was I decided I was gonna quit drinking. And for me, alcohol is a really big part of my life. Like, I was one of those guys that probably couldn't have fun or couldn't have a social conversation without some tequila shots and probably a half a bottle of tequila. And the second I made that decision, I came home. I was in the gym with my wife. I came home and I'm like, my kids are sitting around. And I said to my kids, I was like, hey, boys, guess what? I said, what? And at this point, one of my kids is 13. The other one is 10. No, he was 9 at the time. I said, I quit drinking alcohol. And the 13-year-old goes, really, Daddy? That's awesome. I hate when you drink. So a couple of days went by, and that was an anchor, man. Like I made the decision quickly, and then after I made the decision, there was already these doubts, like, well, what am I gonna do at a wedding, or what am I gonna do at a party, or when my kid gets married, am I really not gonna drink? And the second he said that, boom, the anchor hit, and at that moment, I became a non-drinker. And so, like a couple of days later, I asked him, like, why? What do you hate about it? He said, well, you act like a stupid teenager when you drink. It's kind of embarrassing. I'm like, all right, fair enough. But I'll never, ever forget that. So that reason right there is, and I didn't even know they noticed. I had no idea they even noticed that stuff. So, Phil, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking your time. I know you're super busy. Any shout outs you want to give to the F3 crew? Because we always want to support those guys.
I mean, big shout out to Bing for bringing it in the first place. If Bing didn't bring it down to the Suncoast, who knows where I'd be sitting at right now today. It sure probably would be a few Ironman less medals, that's for sure.
That's true.
So I appreciate that, and big shout out to him. shout out to Big Mac for taking my 2.0 under his wing and allowing him to prosper and move along in the direction that he's moving in. And a huge shout out for you. I thank you, number one, for allowing me the opportunity to come on here and talk with you for a little bit, and even for thinking about me in the first place, and then for having the dedication to run the marathon. But more importantly, I think the non-drinking thing is even a bigger win for you. So.
Oh man, thank you. I'm very, very proud of that one. And we don't get a chance to talk a whole lot. You're on a different schedule than I am. But what I admire about you is that you're a quiet guy. You don't talk a whole lot. You just do. You just show, and I absolutely love that, because you are your word. You set a goal, you go after it. If possible, can I get one of those pictures of you from before? And that way we can put it on the cover. Like, we'll have the Iron Man looking picture and, a fat pincher picture, so people can really see the transformation. I think that'll hit home.
I'll send you two pictures. I have one right behind me here. It's a pretty good memory. So
I love it.
that one.
Hey, I love it. And look, guys, wherever you are, like, it doesn't matter where you are. You might be feeling like your whole world is upside down. Maybe your wife just left, took the kids, took all your money, you might be contemplating like suicide right now. I don't know. I don't know where you are. Maybe you're not that low. What I do know is that there's a way to get out of this, and it starts with one small step. It starts by starting to walk around a soccer field. It starts by making one phone call, reaching out to a friend, getting help, getting surrounded by a community. If you're a dude, go to f3nation.com and see if there's a group near you. If not, reach out to me. We'll help you start one and plant one right where you are. It's all free, open to all men, and this world would be such a better place if men like us were relentless about their goals. So, Pincher, thanks, brother. It was good to have you. Guys, I'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.